The Contagions of Nurgle are getting out of hand. Now if you get too close to the Death Guard, you'll be at -1 toughness against their attacks. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're discussing one of the most anticipated rules for the Death Guard, this new Contagions of Nurgle ability that Warhammer community have been hyping up. Today they've actually shown us exactly what the rule does, and it honestly is really quite powerful. It's essentially a free army-wide incentive to go pure Death Guard rather than running allies. So Contagions of Nurgle seems to be an ability that the vast majority of the army's units will have, if not all of them. We know it's on their core units and troops, we know it's on their demon engines and Mortarion, though we don't have 100% confirmation on things like cultists or predator tanks. To access the rule, you do have to be pure Death Guard, and every unit in the army needs to have the Death Guard keyword or unaligned. This will grant you access to Contagion abilities, which is named very generically, so it does make me wonder if there are more of them, but the only one that they've shown off at the moment is Nurgle's Gift. This makes any enemy units within the Contagion abilities range -1 toughness, whether they're infantry, vehicles, bikes, it doesn't matter, and the range of units that are affected goes up as the battle goes on. In Battle Round 1, only units within 1 inches of your Death Guard models will be affected, so basically just limited to anything that manages to make a first turn charge against you, or you do against them. On turn 2 though, that increases to 3 inches, so you could potentially use this against models that aren't in combat. On turn 3, it's out to 6 inches, and on turn 4 plus it's up to 9 inches range, which means that one single model could potentially affect a good chunk of an army. This rule is honestly looking really powerful to me. It's basically always on for Death Guard in melee. Whenever they fight, their opponents will be at -1 toughness, and if you manage to get your Death Guard models to the front line, it'll be very effective in shooting as well. So let's talk about some of the implications of this then. First of all, the fact that it has to be pure Death Guard is a downside. Unless there are any other ways to get Contagion abilities off besides this main rule, it means that -1 toughness won't be able to help out other Chaos units. You couldn't make them -1 toughness and shoot them with a bunch of Havocs in Chaos Space Marines, for example. You would also have to give up the very decent ally options within the Chaos Super faction. In particular, Nurglings will be a sad one to lose. They're not so far away from being an auto-include in a lot of Chaos lists now, just due to being able to gum up the midfield and steal objectives for the first few turns. Despite all this though, it is a very solid reason to go pure Death Guard, and I'm sure a lot of people are running Death Guard pure anyway, so it's pretty much a flat buff to them. As we mentioned, in melee it's basically always going to be active, and it's going to be really powerful whenever you're engaging enemy infantry. Even basic Plague Marines are looking a lot scarier in melee right now. We know that they've got an extra attack, they get Hateful Assault, which means they'll be getting 3 attacks each, and their leaked datasheet implies that their Plague Knives are going to be AP -1 now, so that's 3 Strength 4 attacks at AP -1, re-rolling once to wound for Plague weapons, against an enemy that's going to be -1 toughness, so if they are fighting some standard Space Marines, they'll be wounding on 3s. The damage output still isn't absolutely outstanding, but because Death Guard are so tough, they should have multiple rounds of combat to grind the enemy down. It's going to make winning the War of Attrition just that bit faster. In particular, it's really strong against Toughness 4 and Toughness 5 units. Whenever you're hitting them with Bolters or Plague Marine attacks at Strength 4, you're always going to feel the effect. I'm sure that Blight Lord Terminators will absolutely love this as well. It'll give them a far better chance of wounding on 3s, which they should be able to do even against Gravis Armoured Space Marines now. In the shooting phase, it shouldn't really have all that much effect on turn 1, unless you're playing with those new Miasmic Malignifiers, as we'll see in a second, and Mortarion, but basically in turn 2, the challenge is going to be to try and park your fast-moving Death Guard units 3 inches from a key enemy unit, make them all -1 to toughness, and then go to town on them with various plaguey guns. As Warhammer community did say in their article, Bloat Drones and Blight Haulers seem very solid for this, able to get up to the board very rapidly in the first turn or so, and should hopefully put some enemy units in contagion range for other things like your standard Plague Marines or Plague Burst Crawlers to take some pot shots at. Again, this should be good on Toughness 4 and 5 units and make them a lot more susceptible to bolter fire, but you really want to get this off on any Toughness 8 vehicles if you can. Going down from Toughness 8 to Toughness 7 is a really big decrease. It makes them far more vulnerable to bolters or Strength 8 weapons such as Plague Burst Mortars or Entropy Cannons. The shooting buff should be very easy to get off in later turns as your arm is moving up and the contagion range is increasing. With 6 inches, each one model should be able to affect multiple units if it wants to, and when it gets all the way up to 9 inches, that should be very hard for your opponent to keep out of range, provided you've got a fair few Death Guard models left. Finally, Warhammer community did mention a couple of specific units which really seem to use this ability quite a lot. We have already seen from Mortarion's leaked datasheet that you will be getting the turn 4 version of this rule all the time. So Mortarion's -1 toughness rule will be 9 inches all the time, and throwing him into the midst of the enemy still seems like a very powerful idea. Next, and quite intriguingly, they've talked about this miasmic malignifier, which they've stated will also get the 9-inch aura for the gift of Nurgle, which will be kind of underwhelming if you had to deploy it just in your deployment zone, but apparently in the free text of the article, they talk about being able to deploy it somewhere that's 12 inches away from the enemy's deployment zone. For whatever reason, you're allowed to drop these things in the midfield, which to be honest sounds like it could make itself really quite problematic and a really decent buffing and debuffing tool for the Death Guard. If you do really have the option to drop these down somewhat close to the centre of the battlefield, you should be able to make your Death Guard units more durable as they move up into its range, and also if any enemy units try and take the centre of the table without gunning it down first, they're all going to be far easier to kill due to this gift of Nurgle. Obviously we're going to have to wait for its points and its full rules, but this is shaping up to be one of the stronger fortifications if everything that they've said is right. Finally, the way that the rule was worded does make me wonder if we're going to see other contagion abilities that we might be able to swap out for. For some reason they've decided to specify that Nurgle's gift is a form of a contagion, which implies that there might be more forms of contagion. Potentially some units might have options to swap out to something else if you don't just want the -1 to toughness aura. I really do think that there might be others. Maybe they might be present as those warlord traits that we've seen teased, or maybe some characters might allow you to have an entire different contagion ability for your army if it makes more sense to. Really no idea at this point, but the way that the rule has written gives me hope that there will be different options. -1 to toughness is already great though. I think that other options might struggle to compete against that one, but if there is a way to mix and match multiple different ones within the same army, then it could be even more powerful. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are these Contagions of Nurgle going to be enough to make up for the change to Disgusting Resilience? I feel like the rule's really quite a cool one and quite fluffy myself. You're really not going to want to get too close to Plague Marines due to these horrible debilitating diseases. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We'll certainly be going over the Death Guard Codex as soon as it comes out. Finally, if you were thinking about buying any Warhammer miniatures in the near future, I would just like to mention that I do have an Element Games affiliate link, which you can find down in the video description. Element Games is a good discount retailer in the UK, giving 10 to 20% off Games Workshop products, and if you order anything through them at all, a small amount goes to help support Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever. If you were thinking about ordering in some Warhammer at some point, consider clicking through on that link and helping to support the channel while still getting a discount. I do have a very similar Amazon link in the USA and Canada. That one works in a very similar way. Basically just click the link, buy anything whatsoever off Amazon, and again a small amount goes to help support the channel, not costing you any more. Both of those can just be a way to help support if you were thinking about buying something anyway. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.